conflict appears to have exposed fresh cracks in that relationship, as Washington and several European capitals find themselves increasingly at odds. Questions are now being raised about the future of one of the world's most important strategic alliances. From Washington's demands for loyalty to Rome's open defiance, the language of alliance is now giving way to the language of confrontation. The trust that held the West together for 7 long decades is now being tested like never before in the past. Is this a temporary rift over one specific conflict or one war, which is the Ukraine-Russia one, or the first signs of a permanent realignment that's actually set to reshape the entire Western bloc? This report tells you more.
Donald Trump looked to Europe expecting military assistance during the war against Iran. Instead, he found resistance. Tensions between the longtime transatlantic allies were already simmering when the latest rupture came. An extraordinary war of words between Trump and one of his closest allies, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. After Italy refused to back direct US military action against Iran, Trump publicly mocked Meloni, claiming she begged to click a photograph with him, but was unwilling to stand firmly beside America when it mattered. Meloni did not stay silent. The Italian leader hit back, insisting neither she nor Italy would ever beg to anyone.
So, certain things merit an immediate reply. Donald Trump's declarations are completely fabricated. I am frankly stunned. I don't know why the President of the United States behaves this way toward his own allies.
Italy is only one front in a widening dispute. Earlier, Spain took an even tougher line. Madrid reportedly closed its airspace to US military aircraft involved in strikes on Iran, refusing to become a launch pad for another West Asia conflict. Then there is NATO. Trump has complained that America's European allies had failed to support Washington during the Iran conflict.
I just want their loyalty. We don't need their money. We don't need anything. We have the most powerful military in the world by far. But I just want loyalty.
Britain, France, and Germany have also sought to distance themselves from direct military involvement, preferring diplomacy over escalation. The message from Europe has been clear: support the alliance, but not every American war. For Trump, that's not enough. His America First doctrine demands more than words. It demands loyalty in action. And as wars reshape the global order, the biggest challenge facing the West may be keeping the alliance itself from drifting apart.
The price of war, viewers, is no longer measured only in lives lost. It is now being measured also in terms of dollars that have been spent. The Pentagon estimates that the United States has spent nearly $29 billion on the Iranian war so far. Independent analysts, though, say the real cost is much, much higher. Pentagon is in fact now seeking an $80 billion supplementary funding package to replenish weapons and to keep the war machine running. As the conflict reshapes the entire Middle East, it is also forcing a reckoning back home in America over military spending, over priorities, over how long America can.
हिंदुस्तान मिले हिंदुस्तान से
जय हो देश हो विदेश हो जेके हो
देश का टायर जेके टायर
Where the software engineer meets the talented photographer to create the big dream. The world comes together at Sharda University.
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद यही तो है इसकी खास बात। वाओ मामा क्या स्वाद है। अरे मेरे राजा सबका राजा और मसाला।
India Inc.'s most respected names chose
India's best and brightest.
I'm delighted to be a
The cost of the conflict is estimated at about $40 billion, but that's just the opening figure, viewers. Trump has asked Congress for $87 billion. The Pentagon separately wants $80 billion in emergency funding, of which nearly $20 billion is directly tied to immediate war requirements. And the damage on the ground? Well, 20 US bases have been hit, 42 aircraft have been lost or damaged, but the bigger bill is the one that is still to come. That is rebuilding damaged bases, replacing lost aircraft, replenishing missiles, as well as munitions. America has already fired over 1,000 Tomahawk missiles, each costing between $2.5 to $3.6 million. Add to that the medical care for wounded service members and decades of veterans' benefits. And it's not just the Pentagon sounding the alarm. There's now a Harvard economist as well, who's warned that the final cost of this war could actually reach a staggering $1 trillion. We're going to come to that. That's something that many are now saying, and the Harvard economist has also pointed that out. Now, why is it that this matters? We tell that to you as well. Why is it that this is now something so important? Because the financial impact of this war could actually last for decades. And America's real costs may now only be coming into focus. These all numbers, when they add up, that is when you know this is not just a single isolated number, but far bigger than that. Now, to talk about this and to really put this into perspective, we have Mike Sarali, who's in fact the retired US Navy SEAL officer, former recon Marine. He served in Iran and Afghanistan, someone who really understands this space better than anybody else, viewers. And Mike, thank you so much for speaking to me on Faultlines. Let me start by asking you, Pentagon's direct military bill is estimated at around $40 billion, but some economists are actually saying it could go up to $1 trillion. What really explains this huge gap as far as estimates are concerned?
Yes. So the truth behind the total bill, it's going to take time to truly find that answer. The estimates may be coming from our legacy media, while the government has different estimations. But ultimately, let me say this: if you could spend $1 trillion to make 10 or 15 trillion, is that a return on investment worth it? And war is not an enterprise to make money. But what I'm talking about is Middle Eastern or even Western Asia stability. And we all know markets that are more stable, lower, inflationary pressure. We could see a new chessboard and new stability, not only again in the Middle East, but West Asia and the rest of the world. Ultimately, markets respond to confidence. And if there's high confidence that the Strait of Hormuz is open, that it is secure, that is good not only for India, the United States, but the rest of the world.
Now, beyond just the missiles and the aircrafts, it's the hidden cost that one needs to understand. And what exactly is that?
Yeah, so if you think the cost that comes to mind is the young American lives we lost. That's the greatest cost that has been paid with this. Now, when you join the U.S. military or any military for that fact, you believe in the ideal of what your country can become. And these young men and women are American idealists. So that to me is the true cost. Now, the missiles, the defense spending on this has been necessary. Let me give you a alternate view or different perspective on this. How have we allowed as a world this to become the status quo? That we can have a rogue, fanatical, ideologically driven, basically terrorist organization running a country that threatens death to Israel, death to America, and death to the West, which India falls within that. We've allowed that to happen for decades. I actually applaud President Trump and this administration for having the moral clarity and courage to do what our past presidents have not done for decades. And if we can see a greater regional stability in the Middle East, we're talking about secure energy, maritime lanes. We're talking about a more regionally aligned Middle East between the Gulf partner states and Israel. the market you're talking about ultimately becomes more stable, it becomes more predictable, and markets love predictability. That ultimately benefits the entire region and world. And so that is the potential outcomes that come from this. Now, if the negotiations go sideways, if the train car comes off the rails, yes, we're gonna suffer some more instability. But ultimately, what people may be missing, depending on what news network they're listening to, Iran is negotiating from a hospital bed, not a position of strength. Their military has been destroyed. Several IRGC leaders, not several, but quite a few have been removed. And Iran as a whole is unstable. They have a power vacuum, and that is good for the world right now. And we've got to give the negotiations over these next now 50 days time to take course. Ultimately, I think they'll benefit, or President Trump and the United States will come out on top, but the region will benefit from them.
The US has so far said all along that its military objectives have been met. But was the strategic outcome actually worth the huge financial cost? And how should success actually be measured in a conflict like this?
That is a great question. So you go in with a set of objectives. And what you want to avoid, and what we saw in the Iraq war is, and I'm sure you remember this term, mission creep, where it was to remove Saddam, and then all of a sudden we're building the nation of Iraq. I was going to say Iran. So that bogged us down in a decade-long war in Iraq, and that was not the key. We were never putting ground troops. We were in there to destroy Iran's military, to ensure that they can no longer enrich nuclear weapons-grade materials. And ultimately, we achieved those objectives at great success. Now, the instability in the Strait of Hormuz is Iran built the strength of their navy to be a maritime disruption force, not a showcase navy as we're used to with China or the US of A. So ultimately, I believe the cost was worth it. As I said earlier, we are going to see a regional stability in the Middle East that we have never seen in our lifetimes. I think especially while these negotiations going on for this final US-Iran deal, you're going to see President Trump move with the Gulf state partners in Israel on an Abraham's Accord 2.0, which also further isolates and contains Iran. And if we see that regional stability, economically, it's good for the Gulf partner states, it's good for Israel, it's good for the region. And if we can see that stable Middle East, it will be good for global markets, it will be good for the rest of the world.
And Mike, I think what many would want to ask is what this war really reveals about the cost of modern warfare. Yes, you have most advanced weaponry, but look at the price tag that it comes with.
Yes, is there still a need? Let me say this, is there still a need for that expensive, high-tech missile defense systems? Absolutely. But can you degrade those systems in terms of volume by sending $25,000 drones, which requires $1 million or even $500,000 missile to take those drones out? Yes. From a business perspective, that's not accretive. What we're seeing is a evolution, or what we're calling 21st asymmetric warfare. In the epicenter of this is the Ukraine, and all militaries are watching. We've seen this small nation, this innovative, resilient, creative nation, go up against one of the largest militaries in the world, Russia, and they have bogged them down in a war of attrition. So you are going to see the advancement of not only drone technology, but AI warfare, which is changing everything. It's almost the SpaceX model of warfare. And we are starting to realize it. We're recognizing it. And the US military, I know for a fact, is moving in that direction, but it is a bit of both. Low cost technology and innovation still paired with the high-tech, costly systems that are required for, let's say, anti-nuclear defenses.
Any lessons for militaries around the world?
Yes, great question. So the answer is yes, they should be watching and they should be learning. Naval power is extremely important just due to maritime access points, and most wars are fought in littoral areas. And over 70% of our great cities in this world are adjacent to littoral areas. So there will always be a need for very strong navies. And it's also the presence, our ability to have a strong navy, and I'm talking about the United States, located on the seas across the world, which aids our rapid response. But with the advent of autonomous surface or subsurface vessels, it's going to change the nature of naval warfare. And that is where the United States is going. That is what every military is watching. If we can have 1,000 vessels that are controlled by 50 men spread across a region, that gives you more visibility, it gives you more presence, it gives you a faster response time, more effectiveness. But the other thing that most people are missing is that AI has been utilized at a greater extent than ever before during this war. So right now we're seeing a race for AI dominance between China and the United States, and that race is not going to be slowing down. And all other regions of the world and all other nations are moving on that as rapidly as possible. Because AI, as we've seen in this last war, has sped up what we refer to as the kill chain. But don't fear, that is the purpose of AI, to speed up the kill chain. Decisions will still be made by humans. So between autonomous drones or even autonomous sea drones, whether surface or subsurface, and AI, warfare is changing. We are here to what we call fifth generational warfare.
All right, Mike, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks much for speaking to me on Faultlines. All right, on that note, a quick break on Faultlines. We return, we tell you more about the Ukraine conflict and the grinding clock that continues there. Stay with us.
Our pure Shahi Paneer Masala. Delicious, healthy, every day.
हिंदुस्तान मिले हिंदुस्तान से
देश का टायर, जेके टायर.
Literally go from the man on the outside looking in now to the man on the inside looking out.
I think that was one of my biggest drivers to become an astronaut.
Iron Man, Kokoro, how does that prepare the body for something with no finish line?
I would say it prepares the mind more than it prepares the body. I live right next to NDTV in Greater Kailash in New Delhi.
What would the young man in India say if he could see you right now?
I'll be up there soon with you.
India Inc.'s most respected names chose India Inc.'s best and brightest.
These kind of awards and jury lineup, you are truly giving it the right weightage.
The eminent juries who are here, and that itself speaks for the commitment towards highlighting the advantage which India is having. What I'm looking for in this is that we should be awarding companies and individuals who have focused not only on growth but also on bringing good governance.
Be part of jury and vote on the people, the men, the women, the companies in India who have the right stuff is a great opportunity for us.
Who will earn India's top business honors? Find out at the NDTV Profit Business Leadership Awards. From the newsroom to the studio to the thick of political action.
You're watching NDTV 24/7. The hope is that beyond this election, this will be one of the major issues. With multiple challenges in the fray, the TMC also has done a bit of rejigging. Remember, this is also a district that has been plagued by communal violence. Come to some of the sabhas that the BJP is also organizing, especially in the villages of West Bengal.
When stories have impact.
Padmaja Joshi, managing editor and Frank.
The war in Ukraine, viewers, has entered another very grim milestone. The conflict has now lasted longer than the First World War, underscoring how a war that many expected to end in weeks has actually now evolved into one of the longest, deadliest conflicts in modern European history. 4 years on, the front lines have barely moved. The death toll, the displacement, the destruction, that keeps climbing. There's no breakthrough in peace efforts right now. Both Moscow and Kiev are not preparing for peace either. It almost seems that they are preparing for it to just go on. The question now is whether either side can afford to keep fighting or afford to stop. Here's a look at how the war has actually reached this point, and more importantly, what could happen next. Let's break that down for you in terms of numbers. The Ukraine war has lasted longer than the First World War. Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022. Front lines have actually hardened since then. Russia has actually lost anywhere between 330 to about 500,000 Russian troops. For Ukraine, the military deaths are at about 100,000 to about 140,000. Battlefield and battle lines have also changed drastically. Drones are essentially now dominating the battle stage. Long-range strikes routinely hit energy infrastructure. Everything is fair game right now. Energy infrastructure has been massively dampened. Heavy artillery actually remains central to the entire military strategy. So essentially, that's where it boils down to. Where things stand right now. Russia continues pressing in East Ukraine. Ukraine has slowed several Russian advances. That is how things stand. But where exactly is Russian advances going, and how successful Ukraine has been in stalling some of those Russian efforts? Ukraine frequently carrying out deep drone strikes. This has been the most successful aspect of the Ukrainian military strategy so far, something they've actually perfected in the last 4 years plus. Neither side has actually achieved decisive breakthrough. This is the most important part, and what explains it to be going on and on and on. What do you expect going forward now? More drone warfare. It's dominating battlefield. It will continue to do so. And one can actually expect the drone attacks to become more larger, more deadlier, more something that could potentially be decisive as well. Also, both sides are now looking at AI-enabled strikes. Now, artificial intelligence in military strikes could actually be the defining aspect of this conflict from here on. For what it's worth, as far as diplomacy is concerned, peace efforts have been on again, off again. Donald Trump shows interest, then suddenly peters out, even as major differences remain with regard to security guarantees, and unresolved prolonged conflict remains most likely scenario as far as this present situation is concerned. It may go on, and it could end up being sort of a cold peace sort of a situation with present battle lines being frozen till the next flare-up. Now, the war in Ukraine is now also entering a new phase. For more than 4 years, the conflict has been defined by missiles. It's been defined by drones, relentless battles across the front lines. But increasingly, Kiev is now looking beyond the battlefield. It is now believing that one of its most decisive weapons against Moscow isn't just firepower, it's information, in a move that could actually reshape military cooperation with its Western partners. Ukraine has unveiled an ambitious new initiative that turns battlefield gains into strategic advantage. How does that all add up? This report tells you.
On the battlefields of Ukraine, every destroyed Russian tank, every abandoned missile, every captured drone tells a story. Now, Kyiv wants the world to read it. Ukraine has launched a new digital platform that gives its allies unprecedented access to captured Russian weapons. It's called Trophy Lab. Think of it as an intelligence vault. The platform contains technical data on Russian military equipment recovered from the battlefield. Everything from tanks and artillery systems to drones, electronic warfare equipment, and missile components. But this is far more than an online catalogue. The goal is to help Ukraine's allies understand how Russian weapons work, identify their strengths and weaknesses, and develop better ways to defeat them. Engineers, defense companies, and military researchers from partner nations will be able to study the technology, improve countermeasures, and even strengthen NATO's own weapon systems. For Ukraine, every captured piece of Russian equipment is no longer just a battlefield trophy. It is now a source of intelligence, a tool for innovation. Kyiv says the database will continue to grow as more Russian equipment is recovered from the front lines. After more than 4 years of fighting, Ukraine is making one thing clear. This war is being fought not just with bombs and drones. It is also being fought with data, with technology, and with knowledge shared among allies.
Well, with that, we wrap things up on this edition of Faultlines. Thanks so much for watching.
मीठा या नमकीन, चाहे जैसे खाओ, 100% सूजी से बनी आर प्योर वर्मिसेली, स्वादिष्ट, सेहतमंद हर रोज।
India Inc.'s most respected names chose India Inc.'s best and brightest.
I'm delighted to be chairing a meeting of such distinguished fellow businessmen, bankers. It's just lovely to be back on this NDTV jury. I have been a fan of NDTV for a long time.
Many of the nominees are extremely close together in terms of what they've done.
Gender parity to be reflected while we choose leadership as well.
It's also important that how they are reshaping the industries.
We've got a fantastic jury and we've left all decisions to the wisdom of the jury.
Who will earn India's top business honors? Find out at the NDTV Profit Business Leadership Awards. NDTV tops the Reuters Institute India Reach Rankings again. #1 in offline and online news reach. For the 6th year in a row, audiences continue to choose NDTV across television and digital. NDTV,